Greetings, everyone. Bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome to the 8th of an 8-part podcast in relation to our Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for Jacqueline Gay Wally's collectible collection of Venus as She Ages, a group of 6 novels under the imprint of IML Publications, a boutique press amplifying contemporary female writers, nomadic explorers of language, form, and the psyche. I'm your host, Murphy Lewis, speaking to you from Paris, bonjour, with my guest of honor, award-winning playwright, novelist, and screenwriter, Jacqueline Gay Wally, presently in New York with us.
Bonjour, Murphy. Bonjour, Murphy.
From New York.
Woo-hoo. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. Paris to New York. So, welcome, Jacqueline Gay. I'm glad to be together with you again. This is exciting.
Me too.
Today we are parlaying differently. So we're not doing book. We're this time going to talk about the overall movement of soul of your 6 novels inside the collection of Venus as She Ages, kind of like what was moving inside of you. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Perfect. So what I want to start with is a quote from Prison Sex. You write about this movement of soul through your protagonist, Samira. Quote, "She doesn't know if she will find love, the long haul of it, but her soul keeps pulsing forward, making its own illogical demands, and she does heed it. A blind faithfulness, if that."
You always pick such great quotes.
Well, you have great quotes to choose from.
So your question?
Yeah, well, there's something driving you that takes place in all these novels that has pulled, let's say, IML Publications to bring them together as a group, a collection.
That's
just like those illogical demands, right?
True. I think that in the 6 books, even though they're not written as a series and they were never intended to be in a collection, that was your vision, and your psyche seeing this wave, and but you're accurate, and I think it is a story of a long story of a soul who refuses to give up. Do you know?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
She
determined.
Determined, and she tends to, in all of them, she's always in love with somebody very flawed most of the time, and she's or situations that are somewhat impossible for different reasons, and she adores her. In the first one, she adores her father, who she really loves her father, who is kind of a rogue and a problematic guy. And so it continues. But I think what's a little unique to the books, when I think about the times we're living in, is that she's sad at times, that she knows she has a monkey on her back, that she's had an unorthodox upbringing. She has a mother who left, a father who's kind of casual about the way he raises her, and she knows she has not been trained for a normal life, but um, and she knows that it's a liability in a certain way. She's not going to fit into the mainstream, and she knows because of that, and she makes a lot of bad decisions also early in life, almost not knowing the difference. She's been around bad decisions. But
Good.
um,
Yeah.
but she keeps trying to get to the mean. She keeps trying to, I don't mean mean nasty, but the, you know, the
Right.
in the middle. She keeps trying to keep her individuality, keep her truths, keep her hope and her desire, and she feeds herself on love, either of nature or of music or of literature, and others, and she tends to see the good, and she doesn't
Yes.
she doesn't tend to see herself as a victim. And I think that's kind of her, um, where it becomes Venus as she ages. Venus was mischievous, often a bit casual about her wake,
Yes.
and um, and she was jealous of Psyche, the younger woman. She was um, here, there, and everywhere, and uh, but she's full of life. She's moving
Yes.
forward, and I think the female protagonist in each of those books moves forward in a kind of delighted way, even when everything is sometimes very hard and
Yes.
sometimes very misguided.
Yes. And there's this the I would agree with you. There's really this theme of a true self with a certain kind of spirit that she keeps leaning toward, right? Though she's involved with the prisoner David, and while she's with Peter, and also briefly married to Peter, it's about herself in a way, the reflection of the men to her, and it makes me think of what I love to use. Let's say I love to use your title of the first book that IML Publications published for you, which is The Erotic Fire of the Unattainable. It always comes up in our conversations, doesn't it? But but I love it because it's an expression of taking care of what is within, as in the greater self, right? As in a capital S self. And maybe Charlie in Strings Attaches maybe just a little young to be thinking about that, right? But your other leading characters, Mira, she, and I, they do just that, right? They offer meaning, often meaning that they choose to relate to themselves first and foremost, right? Then
Yes, yes.
choosing to commit to right, the long haul of it, as you say, or a long-term relation,
Yeah,
right?
I think that the characters and all the women in the book, the main character in all of the books, is not looking for a man as a solution, and
Yes.
is not looking for a man as an answer or as a savior.
Yes.
She's looking for a man to understand her and to love
Mm,
her.
mm,
But in a way, she kind of travels with these men, and she won't compromise her own values,
not
so
at all.
she's always in a mess with them because they
Mm,
sort of want her to be what they want,
mm,
and she's unable to be. She has her own
yes.
trajectory, and she's very in the moment and in love with life as she lives
Mm,
it. And whatever
mm,
challenge comes, she sort of embraces it. And
mm.
so, in some ways, she's sort of I won't say romantic character, but she's kind of a
Yeah, I
Not
would
a,
say a
not a,
romantic heroine. No?
no. I won't say she's a Pollyanna, but she's a sort of um
Yes.
she is not a wise person in her
Mm,
choices and what
mm,
she does. She's not particularly self-protective in the least. But
mm,
she is but she's always ready to see the good in whatever she ends up in, you know.
mm. Nice.
Um don't you think?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
And she's very self reliant in the sense she doesn't blame other people for her mistakes.
mm.
She
Even
blames,
the parents, the
yeah,
mother that abandoned her, the father that took her bar to bar, right? She doesn't
yeah.
blame them.
She
She just
tends,
knows who they are, right?
right, and she tends to if something goes awry, she looks at herself.
Right. It's not, you're not looking at the characters aren't looking at the limitations of others, but at her own challenges
Limitations.
within.
Yes,
Right.
yes, 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 yes.
Yes. As we move book to book, your protagonists become more and more consumed with what feeds their creativity,
Mm-hmm.
that eros within. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned it, books,
Mm-hmm.
jazz music.
Mm-hmm.
You love,
Mm-hmm.
the classical. You take us to classical concerts inside the books, but there is this writer that begins to appear. Right, she
Mm-hmm.
begins to write.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes. She's a writer. Um, right. I think as a child, I don't think she's a writer, but um, yes, that's who she is. And as you say, as the books evolve, she is much more
Mm.
in it.
Yeah.
It becomes a primary relationship. When she's younger, in her 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
she is trying to integrate a creative life with marriage or,
Mm.
a man. Um, and in her 50s and 60s, though, I think she's knows that writing is is primary. And in fact, the
Mm.
second to last book is all about that. Really, it's about her running away with two famous writers who are dead, and
Yeah.
then um, but writing is eros for her, and it's what she trusts. She
Mm.
hasn't,
Mm.
and it's her asset. It's her only asset.
Mm.
And
Yes.
and she trusts in that asset. She is not looking to be famous, or
Mm.
it's
Mm.
not a posture for her. It's not an identity that she takes on.
It's an internal knowingness, right? A
It's
real.
it's just who she is, and she's willing to ride the good and the bad waves with it.
Mm. Yes. Yes. And in fact, well, and well, I want to, I'm going to turn us back a little bit before we go that direction. I do want to talk about that. But first I want to talk about you once mentioned that oftentimes you personally have private clients that come to you. And in fact, five, and book four, The Bed You Lie In,
Mm-hmm.
the man you're in love with, area that you have such a challenging relationship with, he actually is the one that encourages Mira to begin um, helping people write,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Become a teacher, do what you do best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that, he's encouraging Mira. And this is actually what happens in your real life. And one of the things that you mentioned to me, because I'm one of your pupils as well and have been over many years, that you mentioned that your clients, when they come to you, oftentimes they're frustrated or angry at someone, or angry at their childhood, and that when they do write, whether they get published or not, that you see a real healing take place in their own lives.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And you would say the same for yourself, no?
That's very true. I think that one of the things about the collection is I have to encounter my younger self. I no longer identify with the main character, the main female character in book 1, 2, 3, 4. I do with 5 and 6. That is a different woman. The issues that those earlier women are dealing with are almost foreign to me now, you know, and what those women are dealing with, I've worked through, you know. I mean, it's kind, you know, and
they don't have the sting. The
no,
experiences don't have a sting,
not
right?
at all. And I have seen, as you say, with my students and with myself. I mean, I wrote a book called Lost in Montreal that was about my difficult relationship, based on my difficult relationship with my mother, who had run away, and it's some of it is imaginary, but some of it is very true. When I wrote that book, I was finished with the material. I don't feel. I went through everything. Strings Attached has my real father in it as a character, and I don't have any desire to write about my father. You know, I've sort of mined those things. So I think you do work through. I mean, each book you write, and I know in your own writing, I mean, each book you write is whether autofiction, like these books are, or whether or predominantly maybe the fifth book is what they call, what's it called? It's a word.
Right, she said.
Yeah, that's not really autofiction, but a little bit autofiction.
It's all magical realism mixed in with
speculative fiction. Yeah, a little speculative. Oh, I forgot what I was saying. What was I talking about? What were we talking about? The something about
the impact.
Well, I said I wouldn't want to start to write about those things in my past anymore. They've been worked through. But I was going somewhere that I lost. Sorry about that.
Well, you brought up.
Oh, I think I brought your work. I brought up your work. That's that. You don't write fiction, but you know, you've taken what you were going through at certain times, and
you helped me do that.
And oh, I know what I was trying to say is that I think when you're writing fiction or not memoir, not nonfiction, where you're deciding to write, you know, about vitamin D or something, that you have to take what is your obsession at the moment, you know.
Interesting.
You know what is your, because you're going to spend a year with it minimum. You know, you're going to
think that's what you did in writing these novels.
All of them. I mean, I mean, Magnetism, the last one, was about, can I keep my eros, my sexuality, my juice as an older woman? What happens with that? And so I built a story around it.
That's nice.
You know,
it's lovely.
You know, the fourth one, I think it's the fourth one, about the bed you lie in. I was interested in these, how pain gets carried down, how we act out the pain that sort of that is carried historically in us, you know,
through the Holocaust, through the
in that particular story. And so they all have a theme that I was trying to work out. And I think you have to choose when you're writing a book, what am I obsessed with right now? What am I working out? Which is in a way what you do in therapy.
Yes,
but I actually find a book better than therapy.
Yes. Though your characters, what's one of the themes that's running at least kind of in your earlier work? You talk about analysis. In fact, there's a great scene that I'll come to later that we'll talk a little bit about. Tell me, who inspired you as auto fiction writers? Who were the main, besides Marguerite Duras and Jean Rhys and your Right, She Said? I mean, I know you love Marcel Proust, no?
Well, I wouldn't say I mean, I did when I was young. I think one of the things that is not always true, but I remember I loved a writer, um, Richard Yates, who wrote
Mm,
novels, and they were fantastic novels. Um, when I read his biography, 15, 20 years after he wrote his books, I was shocked to see that most of the stuff was true. And it's
wow.
not
Wow.
uncommon
Yes.
that for autofiction's been around a long time, and it's not
Mm,
uncommon for writers to use their own stuff. Um,
mm,
so there, it's more common than not.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I'm not speaking about crime novels and genre novels. I'm
Right.
talking
Right.
about literary novels.
Right.
The um, but who did I like? I mean, I tend to like, as you know, European writers.
Mm,
There's a
yeah.
tremendous amount of autofiction in European writers.
Yes.
Almost.
Well, it's really honored, right? They really appreciate it. In fact, the French coined the word autofiction. No,
Oh, that I
I
didn't know
think,
that. Yeah,
yes, I think
yeah,
that it was
yeah,
their,
yeah. That I did not
um,
know.
I
But
think,
um, yeah. I mean, there's so many great writers that, and particularly European, and many
mm,
many writers. You sort of defiantly would say, "I didn't make up a word." When they're interviewed. So
mm,
as whenever talking about writing, everything you say can be disputed. So I mean, there's many people who make everything up. So I
right,
mean, I'm
right.
I'm writing a book right now where it's completely fictional, everything that
Mm,
happens, and
mm,
many of the characters are fictional, but the emotions are mine.
mm.
So
So also one of the things we haven't discussed yet is there's a there's a great scene in Right, She Said, where Mira receives a letter from an agent, not a call about fixing the punctuation or change the title, but one of those turn down kind of letters. And you yourself have been challenged as a writer with that experience, and you write about Mira challenged with this, and one being challenged with the rejection, but also the challenge then, what do I write about, so that I can live, I can eat. And there, I'm going to quote you about Mira as she's thinking about what am I going to write next. Quote, my real life was more fanciful than anything I could think up. Maybe that had always been the problem. I had written stories and novels, some were published, and most were not, about my life that were true, about a girl all alone, having the elements, or braving the elements, a girl who flirted with her mother's boyfriends to get her mother's attention and still was not, excuse me, and still was not able to, a woman who had trouble feeling. The editor's unanimous response was, couldn't happen. I wish. So there's a way that you let us know you're writing autofiction and they
mm-hmm,
don't believe it, right? It's not
mm-hmm.
possible that a father would take you bar to bar or whatever, right? It's not possible. This is fascinating, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a literary writer for most people is very, very difficult. And yeah, I mean, you have to be made of steel to be a writer. I mean, I always thought it was kind of funny that I had a mother who rejected me, and I chose a profession that is, a sort of where you're awash in rejection, and
Exactly.
you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your work. Obviously, you know, there are good comments that are helpful and etc. But I think if you are writing truly, like I worked with a woman who wrote a memoir, and I encouraged her to really write in her own voice and in a style that was um, not often used, and
Nice.
it was risky.
Yeah.
And I would think am I really sabotaging this woman? But it was so suited her. It was the only way really she could write, do you know? And because I encouraged her to stay true to that, and because she did stay true to that voice, it got picked up like that.
Wow.
So you see, you never really know. I also, being a writer is like being a Las Vegas gambler. You really cannot tell what's going to hit. Yeah. I mean, what's going to hit, what's not going to hit. Publishers go mad. They believe in a book and they pay fortune to get it, where it only doesn't sell, and then some
it's kind of a crapshoot, right?
It's a crapshoot, and in a way, I think that's exciting. I mean, it's exciting, and I think all publishers have never figured out the formula. They try, and but there's a bit of kismet to it all, and a bit of mystery to it all, and
yes. Okay, now I'm going to take you back to psychology, which we kind of spoke about earlier, but the theme of psychology comes up a lot in the earlier books, and your characters explore themselves psychologically. And in Prison Sex, she even uses the prisoner as a reflection, and also the husband too. It becomes so Peter and David become really key to that. But it's and then also even the parents, the mother and father, become something for her to reflect and grow from. So she's looking at it psychologically. But yet in book 2, To Any Lengths, there is a turning point in how your main character begins to relate when she ignites her own willingness to dance with the wildness within after a dialogue with a Freudian psychoanalyst in New York City. So I'm going to quote you. So this is Mira with the analyst. Do you mean, I ask, that my inability to get close to a man is my inability to embrace my own creativity? My elusiveness is not from them, but from myself. He nods, even though my back is turned to him on the couch. Do you mean that the real relationship for me is to my own fire and the rest is distraction? He nods, even though my back is turned to him on the couch. Do you mean that all of this is nonsense? Yes, we need love and so on, but the primary engagement is with one's own arrows. Here he hesitates. He wants to disagree, love and work and all of that. He wants to tell me to acclimate, but he knows he spends 14 hours a day in his analyst chair. Then he goes home. Only then. He nods, even though my back is turned to him on the couch. Do you mean that I have to go for my own wildness, my own being? I cannot be what Peter or David want. I can only be this silence. Do you mean that I am alone and that is who I am? Alone. answering to my own gods, and happy.
Well, that about sums it up. That about,
well, doesn't it? It's like
that about
wow.
That about sums it up. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
I know.
it's
And
funny.
it's really kind of there. The books really take a turn, right? It's like something she becomes a heroine, right? She's like really though she doesn't quite know where she's going, there's a real strength inside there of the protagonist.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think she does, and I think she lives it out. You know, in all the rest of the books, she lives her own life, and men are somewhat ancillary. I mean, they're ways for her to experiment with life. And actually, once she solves whatever problem she's in, she usually leaves the man. I mean, you know, that's been solved. See you.
Yeah, it becomes to freedom from her own imprisonment. And I'm going to read a last quote from Prison Sex. This life was no longer prison sex. It was every moment sex. And I know that you mean sex in the greater sense of the word, not about the act, right? But sex in the eros, the loving sense, something bigger than herself, right?
Yeah.
She discovers. That's the end
and
of
also
prison
the
sex,
vulnerability to something
Yeah.
other than yourself. The relational. Yeah. I think she's not materialistic in the sense where she thinks a thing, be it a man or money or fame or a trip or whatever, is going to be the solution.
Yeah.
She is relational to the extent she knows everything's ephemeral and everything's passing and not in your control. So engage full force in the moment and whatever you're in, you know, and that leads to an interesting life, I think. You know, I think it leads to interesting journeys of the soul to where you began this talk. You know, you asked about YIML. That was an interesting.
Right.
Well, what do you think? You happen to be you are Miss IML. What do you think?
Well,
I mean, it is interesting.
It is. I mean, I'm thinking about. I made that I made a call to you in May or early June last year, right? Maybe it was the COVID quarantine in Paris, and you were quarantined in New York. I said, Jacqueline Gay, send me everything you haven't had published. Send it to me, and I'll read it. I want to think about it because we had such success with Erotic Fire the Unattainable.
Yeah.
And it was, look, we published it, it got resold, it got made into a movie, and then it got made into another movie. And it's, you know, look, The Unattainable Story came out of it through Amelia Ferreira, Frank Vital's movie, Erotic Fire the Unattainable, Longing to Be Found, those two. And then Skyhorse bought the book. So, you know, I sat down and thought, what's the most interesting thing that we did together and or in my own life? To me, that's success, you know, measuring it. We didn't measure it in dollars and cents. We measured it in what happened, the movement of soul of that book, right?
Well, I think that, you know, you and I talked a little bit about this, but I think it speaks of a new type of commerce and working together where talk about the soul again. I mean, you know, you had a feeling for my work. You never could have done these podcasts the way you can go in, and you know, it's so impressive. And you now, that's every writer's dream, to have somebody get you, you know. So
for sure,
that's a marvel. Yeah, that's and for me, you've done that. And to bring out this audacious idea of yours, 6 books at once, I mean, it's audacious.
Kind of crazy.
I mean, and that also attracted me. It's audacious. It's creative. It's like, we're going to break all the rules. Let's do it. So
Yeah,
of course,
right.
of course I said, yeah. And so it's kind of, and it's sort of like a psyche's task, it's like one of the tasks that the psyche's given, can you sort all these
Yes.
this is, can you bring out 6 books in different countries, and
Yes, exactly.
it's a psyche's task, but
It is.
because of that, it has marvelous energy around it, and has
Totally.
it has magical, I don't mean magical in a hopefully in a delusional way, but it has
Right.
it has
Oops.
that's that famous line, I don't know, it was Goethe who, that if you dream big things, the universe comes to support you. And I kind of feel that about this, but also it's a new way of working. I mean, I could have banged on doors enough to maybe get some presses in New York, to maybe pick up 1 or 2, but this is a whole adventure. This is a whole erotic fire of the unattainable. This is, and so, and together, and also just 2 women trusting each other. How can I help? What can we do together? Stepping forward on Thelma and Louise off at the cliff. Not that it's going to have that ending, but that's there's a lot of beauty in that. A lot of beauty in that.
Yeah.
And you have other books coming out, and I know some of them, and so it's going to be, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, we have some other writers in mind, and we're exploring that right now. Well, gosh, Jacqueline Gay, this has been fun. Anything? What were you going to say? You're going to say?
Well, I was going to say, did you want to mention Across the Divide or not?
No, let's wait.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, coming to a theater near you, right?
Yes,
another
exactly.
book.
Exactly. Another book.
Cross the divide to the divine.
when we get across the 6.
Yeah, right. When we get across these 6, is right. This has been such a joy and a pleasure to be with you in these 8 podcasts, Jacqueline Gay, and thank you. Thank you. It's all your vision. It's a fantastic vision. But you're writing, darling. If you hadn't written them, I'd have no vision at all on that. So
I don't know. I wouldn't agree with that, but anyway.
All right. So this is I, Murphy Lewis of IML Publications, speaking to you from Paris, France, with our guest Jacqueline Gay Wally in New York City, about her collection Venus as She Ages, which you can now purchase in advance, 6 months in advance, for a little more money to fund our author at www.indiegogo.com under the caption Venus as She Ages. Thank you for joining us, Jacqueline Gay.
Thank you, Murphy.
It's been a pleasure to have you here.
It is a pleasure.
You can listen to our podcast featuring Jacqueline Gay Wally's novels, or visit her website www.gaywally.com or our website www.imlpublications.com. This podcast was recorded on Zencastr with producer Sebastiano Tecchio, executive producer Alan Sledge, accompanied by flautist Steve Slagle's Goin Home from his album Spirit Calls. A bientôt.
A bientôt. Merci.
Bye. Thanks.